Okay, time being 6:30, I'd like to call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the traditional territory acknowledgement, followed by a moment of silence. Council of the Township of Red Rock hereby acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of the Robinson Spirit Treaty and that the land we gather on is home to the Red Rock Indian Band, the Anishinaabe, and Métis people. Administration advises that there are no amendments to the agenda. I do have one. 6.11 would be Top of Lake Superior Chamber of Commerce, August 27th meeting. Their correspondence was not uploaded, so we're going to defer that to next meeting. Do any members of council wish to make amendments to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, can I have a mover and seconder for motion to approve the agenda as presented? Councillor Muir, Councillor Smith, all in favor? Against? Okay. Motion's carried. Are there any declarations of interest to disclose? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is the closed session portion of the meeting. May I have a mover and seconder for motion to go into closed session under the authorities as printed in the agenda? Councillor Brand. Councillor Smith. Okay. All in favor? Motion's carried. So rising from closed session, council approved the closed session minutes from the August 12th meeting and also matters relating to an identifiable individual. We did not finish closed, so we will be going in at the end of our meeting. Okay, tonight we have Kristen from BDO Canada here to present the 2023 draft financial statements for the Township of Red Rock and the Red Rock Public Library. Come on up. And when you're ready to speak, just press the button there.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me here tonight to present the audited financial statements for both the Township and the Library Board. So first, I'm going to walk us through the Township financial statements. So that's the lengthier document. That's, I don't know, 20-something pages or so. So I promise not to go through every single page, but rather give some of the highlights here. So I think everyone has a copy, correct? Yes. Okay, perfect. All right, so I want to start on page number 3. So page 3 is the independent auditor's report. So essentially we put together these financial statements that are all prepared by numbers from management. And at the end of our audit, we issue an audit report. And that is what I'm going to go over here. It goes on pages 3, 4, and 5. So this year we have a qualified opinion, which we have had in previous years. In past years, it related to the landfill liability. And for all intensive purposes, that's the same issue again this year, except the wording is slightly different. This year with municipalities and public sector entities, there was a new accounting standard that was adopted. It was called asset retirement obligations. So this groups in things like your landfill and other tangible capital assets that might have a future retirement cost. So what has impacted a majority of the municipalities would be asbestos in buildings. So under this new standard, what is supposed to be required is an undertaking of scope to determine if there is any future retirement costs on any of your tangible capital assets. And that analysis wasn't undertaken at this time. So there is a qualification in the audit report. I guess just to speak to this as well, just to give everyone a better understanding, we probably audit about maybe 7 or 8 municipalities at BDO. And I would say out of the 7 or 8, there was only 2 that actually adopted this standard this year, one being the city of Thunder Bay and one being a smaller entity. It really is a cost benefit analysis is what I've kind of, with my conversations with other councils, is that it's a significant undertaking to hire the engineers to get the cost to even do this exercise. And it's a big undertaking, and I don't know if the benefits really truly there. So that's something that maybe management can take back and give that system some consideration. I know that you're maybe starting the process here for the landfill liability, and And if that's being done, perhaps continuing that on to other tangible capital assets. But just to give you a little bit of, background, you're not the only ones that have this qualification in your audit report. So that's what I wanted to comment on there. The rest of the pages, just for transparency purposes, kind of outline what we do as the audit and what the roles and responsibilities for everyone is. So it talks about management, and their piece would be doing the day-to-day record keeping, safeguarding assets, developing controls along those lines to prevent any fraud or error. It also mentions those charged with governance, which would be everyone here today. So I guess this is your opportunity to ask any questions that you may have on the financial statements at the end of my presentation here. And then it talks about the auditor's responsibilities. So kind of what we're looking at doing, we look at areas that might have a higher risk of material misstatement and designing or testing that way, making sure that the internal controls relating to the financial reporting process are done correctly. And if we have any points to consider, we bring that up in our management letter. Looking at appropriate accounting policies, going concern basis, and just the overall structure of these financial statements. So that's what these couple pages here are trying to say in a nutshell. Okay, moving into some of the numbers here. So page number 6 is the consolidated statement of financial position. So this shows all the assets and all the liabilities, and I guess the accumulated surplus at the end of December 31st, 2023, and the comparative period there for 2022. Before maybe getting into some of the numbers, maybe just some general big items, kind of stand back and taking a look at it. When I take a look at these financial statements, there's definitely strong cash balances on hand. There's money is being set aside for restricted reserves, as well as, restricted funding, whether that be gas tax or OSIF funding. All of that is accounted for and on hand. Midway down the page there, you can see net financial assets of $1,448,000. That means that if you had to pay all your liabilities off, you would be able to meet that plus 1.4 million because you had enough assets on hand. And that's a positive sign, because there is some municipalities that have negative numbers in that category. So I think that's a good thing to see. It means you can cover off all your liabilities and that cash flow is strong. And then I guess the other thing, just to kind of highlight there too, your long-term debt has increased. You had a long line credit last year for all the capital projects. That really is an extension of all the ongoing infrastructure upgrades in the community. And I don't think that's necessarily not a bad thing. It's just you're improving in all your infrastructure. So that's how part of it is being funded for the pieces that aren't funded by government. So that's kind of a high level. I'll go through a little bit of the numbers and some of the highlights here. So the financial assets, that lists kind of everything that can be easily converted into cash. And that total number there comes to $4,649,140. The biggest items that make up this category here would be cash of a 1.9 million. And then this year, $1 million was moved into a GIC to earn a little bit of interest. The interest came in at about 5.2%. So that's not bad for a GIC right about now. So all in all, between cash and short-term investments, there's about $2.9 million there. Taxes receivables, that would be any, property taxes that were outstanding at the end of December. And that number is slowly creeping upwards. You can see there about 244,000 this year. I know that there was a few properties that in particular that were behind a few years in making some payments. I think maybe a few of them maybe even became vested in 2024. So that's kind of a reason there for a little bit of the increase. Accounts receivable, accounts and grants receivable, that's come in at about 1.2 million. That really does depend on the capital projects. Obviously with your wastewater treatment plant and the sewer and water projects, all of that is accounted for in this particular line. I know the township had to fork out the cash first before and then put reimbursements in and get reimbursed afterwards. So that's primarily what that accounts and grants receivable is there, as well as the HST rebate. So when there was large extensive capital projects, usually the HST rebate is a pretty significant portion of that as well. The user charges receivable, that's 77,000. That is just your water and sewer receivables at the end of the year. And then inventory held for resale, that would be vested properties that are being held for sale. And that number went down a little bit because there was 2 properties that were sold during the year. On the liabilities side, just a couple items I want to go through there. You can see there's nothing in bank indebtedness because that was the line of credits that you had in the previous year. That has been converted into Ontario infrastructure loan that's sitting there in the long-term debt. So you can see that's up 1.5 million versus 339 in the previous year. Your accounts payable and accrued liabilities did decrease from the previous year. Once again, kind of tied to the capital projects. Seems like a lot of things tend to be when I comment on it as regarding the capital projects, but that's where that comes from. And then the deferred revenue is another large item that's sitting there as liabilities. So this is mainly three big pieces of funding. This would be the federal gas tax, the OSIF funding, and then some NORDS funding that was being used on bridges. So those are the three items that are kind of sitting in there that can be earmarked for future projects moving forward. And down below, we have non-financial assets. So this is primarily your tangible capital assets. And that came in at almost $33.8 million. So there was a fair bit of additions in 2023, almost 1.7 million. So there was the water treatment center there for about 865,000. The sewer water main project was about 216,000 in 2023. There's also some chiller for the arena, as well as a backhoe that was purchased and some fire equipment. So a fairly large investment this year in capital. And that kind of brings us to the bottom of the page there, which talks about accumulated surplus at 35,300,519,000. So maybe if we go to the next page, page 7. This is the statement of operations and accumulated surplus. So this really just shows all the money that came in via revenue and then how everything was spent down in the expense category. One of these years, it would be nice to kind of see what this would look like in a normal year, that it isn't impacted by a whole bunch of different capital projects. I think me and Mark were joking about that the other day when we were going through this. Keep in mind too, when you're looking at this, these are in accordance with accounting standards. They're not in accordance with how you guys would go about doing your operating budget. So keep that in mind a little bit as we walk through this. The revenues here did come in at 4,274,000. And it's kind of broken up into maybe 4 different categories here. We've got taxation revenue, user charges, government transfers, and other revenue. So the taxation piece, it makes up about 37% of your total revenues there. The biggest piece by far would be residential taxation, as well as commercial and taxation from other governments. So that came in at, if you added all those up, that comes in at about 1.59 million this year. And the previous year was about 1.52. So a slight increase year over year. User charges, we've got your water and sewer billings. That was up about 58,000 from the previous year. Other fees and service charges came in at about 231,000. So that would be tipping fees, marina fees, kind of anything is kind of the catch-all in that particular category. Government transfers represented about 43% of total revenues, and that's broken up by federal and provincial. So most of the government funding is typically for capital projects, besides your Ontario Municipal Partnership funding, which is an unrestricted piece of funding. But that really can go up or down in any given year, depending what's going on in the community. And the biggest pieces obviously would be tied to the Water Pollution Control Center, the water main project, all that type of stuff would be included in there. Other revenue, the one line that kind of jumps out that looks a little strange when you're looking at it would be the permits, licenses, and fines. So this year, 54,000. In the previous year is about 162,000. Last year was the final settlement for those mill properties. So a lot of that was related to that particular piece sitting in there in 2022. So that number, you probably won't see that again. 54,000, 60,000 tends to be, a more normal number that you would see year over year. Investment income, that is up this year. Interest on the bank accounts, interest on the GICs has all increased. So that's about 77,000 there. And then about 28,000 there for land sales. So once again, depends on what gets sold and what properties and what the profit would be. On the expense side, it came in at 4,448,332. And we've got it broken up into different categories kind of by segment. So general government, 888,000 there, pretty comparable from the previous year. Protections to persons and property, once again, very consistent year over year. So this would include things like police, fire would all be included in that particular line item. Transportation services, that's sitting at about 890 this year, and that is up. And the primary reason for that is there was a bunch of bridge repair work that was done this year, and that's where that cost kind of sat in. And that's was about 155,000. So that really does very much explain the difference year over year in that category. Environmental services, 1,270,000, up about 60,000 from the previous year. And that's mainly due to the Aqua contract. There's an increase every single year that's made up of that. So that's the biggest increase there year over year. Health services would be payments to the health unit. That came in around 58,000, and ambulance, I believe, is also in there. Social and family services would be the DSAB payments. So that was 48,000. Recreation and cultural services, 822. So the marina, parks, any programming is all included in that category. And last but not least, there is planning and development. So that came in around 164,000, down about 41,000 from the previous year. Last year, there was a couple one-time grants that came in for certain costs, whether it be the website review or there was the RV park study in the previous year. Nothing quite along those lines this year. So at the end of the day, this left the township with a deficit there of 173,000. Last year was about 1.5 million. So these capital projects do tend to swing the differences a fair bit year over year. And a big piece of this deficit actually related to, I want to say on the final, one of the billings anyways, for the water treatment plant, there was a dispute on the amount that was billed. And I know Mark was able to get that sorted out and that bill never got paid. But we recognized the revenue for that in the previous year because that project was fully funded. So to reverse that this year, that kind of came off the bottom line this year. So really it should have been a reduction off last year, but it's showing up this year, just a timing difference and just the way that we show it for accounting purposes because the issue wasn't fully resolved until midway through 2023. So that's why we showed it this way. So all in all, those are kind of the main pieces there of the financial statements. Any questions? I know I went through a lot and I said a lot of numbers, so more than happy to answer any questions that you might have had when you were reviewing these ahead of time.
I just have I don't know if it's a question or a statement. So if anybody was to be looking at this and say we've received $50,000 grant, we have to show that in our financials. It's not that we've spent 50,000, but we would have to show it in our balances, right?
So it depends.
Okay.
So it depends if there's restrictions on the grant. So if it was a grant for a specific purpose, you have to show that when you recognize the expenses. If it's a grant that doesn't have any strong stipulations, then you recognize it as revenue. So is this kind of going back to the difference between the 2 years, or is that just the general?
Yeah, like if somebody was looking, just like what you had said earlier, right? Like with the mill property, or one of the other ones with that you received grants. So that's why that's higher and then the other one is lower. So.
Yeah. Like for example, like your federal gas tax, right? Like we show that as deferred revenue until the expenses come through. If there's specific funding that has to be spent on road works or bridges, we defer that until the actual costs get incurred. There is certain pots of funding that come in that have no restrictions that can be used in any manner, and those get recognized as revenue right away. So it kind of depends on each and every single piece of funding that does come in the door. Yeah. No. Okay. The only other thing that I kind of just wanted to go through quickly, because I kind of changed the wording a little bit this year. If you don't mind jumping to page 21. Which would be note 9. Okay, everyone's there. All right. So this is just the accumulated surplus note. So this is kind of has different categories that breaks down exactly how we get to that $35,300,519 that we talked about on the statement of financial position. So one of the changes that I made this year was maybe 3 lines down. So we have the unallocated surplus from general fund. So this would be how we flow through the accounting net income and deficit any given year, is we're going to show it through this line. Previously, it was called working capital, and I think that that was a little confusing because it kind of implied that there was reserve funds set aside for a specific purpose. So we've kind of changed the wording a little bit, and this is consistent what I've seen in other municipalities as well. So I just wanted to highlight that to council because that was a change if you were looking at it from the previous year. Kind of the top page, I'll kind of just walk through this note, I guess, a little bit. So the top part is showing the surplus that relates to the tangible capital assets. So that's the biggest piece, and that ties into the capital assets that were listed on the statement of financial position. So that's the 33.7 million. The current funds to be applied to the operations of the following year, really that's the library's surplus. And then the second line, that 714, would be the township's accounting surplus. And then down below, we have all the reserve funds listed that are all set in separate bank accounts. So those are all listed out for everyone to see. But I just, like I said, just wanted to communicate that because that was a little bit of a change in wording than you would have seen in previous years. All right. Okay. So that is kind of the Township of Red Rock financial statements. I'll quickly go through the library board if that's okay with everyone. Is that next on the agenda? Yeah. Okay. All right, the library board will be quicker. So the library board here, if page 2 and 3 is once again our audit report. There's 4 different reports, I guess, that an auditor can give. 2 are good, 2 are bad. So you fall into the good category. This is actually a clean audit opinion. This is the top one that you can have here. So there was nothing that we would have noticed that wasn't in accordance with Canadian public accounting standards. So same idea. The rest goes on what I previously kind of talked about in the other set of financial statements. So I won't duplicate that. Page number 4 is the statement of financial position. So this lists all the assets and all the liabilities of the library board. So there's not as much going on in these financial statements. So the highlights here, I guess, on this page would be there's cash in the bank there of about $4,700. That little bit of government remittances receivable of $290, that would be the HST rebates that would have came back in early 2024. So we've got total assets there of $5,000 and $52. And of that, we got liabilities down below. So there's some accounts payable for about $1,200 and a little bit owing to the township itself for $105. So that gives us total liabilities there. And then non-financial assets, this is probably the biggest thing, the tangible capital assets of $50,000. That's the library books and any equipment and furniture would all be included in that. So we got accumulated surplus there at the end of the day of about $54,363. And that went down from the previous year because when we flip to the next page, there was actually a deficit of the year. So on the next page is the statement of operations, which lists all the revenues and all the expenses. So on the revenue side, we've got an increase from year over year. So we came in at $117,785. By far the biggest piece is the contribution that comes from the township of $95,000 of cash that was moved over during the year. There was also some grants, whether it be from the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility or Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport that's sitting in there. The other grant piece would just be some money that was received for an interim or summer job, would have came through there. The other one that's a little bit new this year, you'll see contribution of tangible capital assets. So the township transferred over a copier to the library. So that was being shown as almost like a donation. So that's there in the revenue line. And then down below, we've got all the expenses, which total $124,580. The biggest piece of that would be the salaries and benefits to the individuals who are working at the library. There's also some charges that go across, whether it be for accounting or administration services, the rent that gets charged across. There's also some program costs that would be in there. And I believe that's tying into a particular grant that was received. So monies that were spent for that specific purpose. And then a bunch of smaller numbers that are all included in there. So You can see at the bottom, we've got an accumulated deficit of the year of $6,795. It's a deficit, but there was still money that was in the bank accounts during the year, so there really wasn't a need to transfer any more money over. And that's kind of a summary there of the library board. Nothing jumped out when we were doing the audit. Everything was kind of as expected, and all the money was for the small grants that were received. All of it was spent in accordance with those stipulations in that particular grant as well. So not sure if there's any questions on the library board. Yes.
Yeah, this is just a question about the 11,000 that comes from the seniors. Is that earmarked for specific like AODA compliance? Is that?
Do you remember exactly what that was for? Okay.
No, I don't, I believe it's library. No, I would have to look back into that, to be honest.
I was just curious. I saw it in like the general revenue, so I thought is it earmarked or something, but I guess wouldn't necessarily be. It's in general.
It was earmarked for a specific project for the library.
Okay.
That's where you see the program and staff development, that 8,148. A lot of that was where the specific spending for that particular grant went. I think due to timing, I think a portion of it didn't actually flow through in 2022. It flowed through in 2023. So there might even be two pieces that are in there.
Okay. You know, I just was wondering because there wasn't anything the year before that. Well, that's that's a weird number, right? For so okay. Thanks.
All right. Okay, I think that's the two pieces of financial statements I wanted to go through. I just want to stop and thank management and the team. I think that the audit went fairly smoothly this year. The books and records were in good shape. The internal controls, I think, are constantly being improved. And I think we have good and open communication. And if there's any issues that pop up, I know Mark and Sam will give me a call and we can walk through whatever needs to be walked through. So I guess just congratulations on a successful year. And if there's any other questions, happy to answer. But if not, I think that concludes my presentation.
Are there any questions? I just have one.
Yep.
So how often does VDO come down to the township in a given year?
Usually twice. Well, I guess 3 times per se. So we come down usually in the fall for a week of, doing some planning and getting some initial sampling done. So it reduces, the work we have to do when we come in March. And then we have, in the past couple of years, we've come to do some inventory work, usually the first week or so of January. And then we're usually here for a week or 2 in March or April, depending when everything's ready for us to come in to do the audit.
Okay, I just don't want anyone thinking that you come down once a year and you're just going to sample just a few things. And, you are constantly, for one thing, in communication with the township, but also that you do come down during the year and do like a control audit. Yeah, I from my perspective, I always prefer to come out on site. Like there is some organizations that prefer everything to be done virtually. And I think it's just easier to come on site and be able to actually talk to people. And it tends to be more efficient and more effective and gets us in and out and done the audit a little bit quicker when we do it that way. Okay, great. Again, any questions of the person's report? No? Okay, is there a mover and seconder for motion to accept Township of Red Rock's 2023 financial statement from BDO Canada? Councillor No. Councillor Burand. All in favor? Motion's carried.
And Mayor Robinson, just if I might add that senior funding was for a lot of programming for seniors, technology. There was some laptop upgrades, so it was all dedicated through senior funding to the library. So it was all spent within that. Yeah.
Okay, is there a mover and seconder for motion to accept the Red Rock Public Library's 2023 financial statement from BDO? Councillor Muir, Councillor Smith. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you very much for coming. Safe travels home. Okay, open session minutes of the last regular meeting, August 12th, are at items 5.1 of the agenda. Are there any errors or omissions to note in the minutes? May I have a mover and seconder for motion to approve the minutes at items 5.1? Counselor Smith, Counselor No. I'm spelling your name at two T's. All in favor? Motion's carried. I'll get it right. Okay, resolutions from other municipalities. We have a resolution from the Township of Brudnell, Lindnock, and Raglan regarding urging the government to promptly resume assessment cycle. Is there a mover and seconder for motion to support the correspondence from the Township of Brudnell, Lindnock, and Raglan regarding the urging of government to promptly resume assessment cycle? Counselor Mayor, Counselor Smith. Sorry about all my misspeaking. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, next item 6.2, information purposes only regarding the Ontario Senior Achievement Award nominations. Do any members of council have any questions of this item? And I'm not a senior yet, so please don't put my name forward. So this is open to the public, correct? So anybody, it doesn't have to come through our office. Okay.
Yeah, I think we would highlight it through the office and put out an advertisement for it if it was, and then we could bring those back to council for that discussion.
Okay, it does look like if you do it online, it would just go right to them, right? So if somebody was to come to the office, I guess we would just forward that on then for them. If they don't have that technology. Okay, no other questions, comments? Okay, next item 6.3, information purposes regarding the July 9th meeting minutes from the Chamber of Commerce. Do any members of council have any remarks? Seeing none. 6.4, information purposes regarding the August 6th meeting from the Chamber of Commerce. Do any members of council have any remarks? Okay, 6.5, information purposes relating to the April 17th meeting minutes from the Thunder Bay District Municipal League. Do any members of council have any remarks? Okay, 6.6, information purposes regarding a news release on Premier Ford's changes to cabinet. Do any members of council have any remarks on this? 6.7, information purposes regarding the Thunder Bay District Health Unit's briefing notes from AMO. Do any members of council have remarks? (6.8) Information purposes regarding the August 20th meeting minutes from the Chamber of Commerce. Do any members of council have any remarks? Lots of meetings. 6.9, information purposes regarding the August 18th board meeting summary from NOMA. Do any members of council have any remarks? Seeing none. 6.10, information is discussion purposes regarding the Solve the Crisis campaign to address homelessness. Do any members of council have any remarks on this? Council Brand.
I was just wondering on the second page, they give us links for people. Is that something that could be put on our webpage or our social media so people could look into that? Because we're asking all Ontarians to join our call by visiting, so I'm just wondering if that would be something we'd want for our community members to. Yeah.
No, we can look at that for sure.
Yeah, if they're looking for any,
Yeah, for sure.
Residents'
We can look at
information.
that. Yep.
Okay, 611 is deferred to the next meeting. Okay, 612 is information purposes only regarding a 40-year milestone award for the Paiute Mountain Run from the Chamber of Commerce. Do any members of council have any remarks on this? No. Councilor Brand?
Does that go in our rec center display case, or what happens to that award?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. I mean, I don't believe we got anything other than this document. It's just a plaque, so I'm sure we can look at where we could.
Yeah, we'll find somewhere where, I mean, once the rec's gonna be getting busier and stuff, so it'd be a great place to put it for now. Okay, next item 7.1 are the minutes from the Committee of Adjustment meeting on August 20th. Do members of council have any remarks on this item? Councilor Brand?
So this is private property, so the municipality is not responsible for any plowing or upgrading. Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay, is there a mover and seconder for motion to receive the minutes? Councilor Brand, Councilor Muir, all in favor? Motion's carried. Next item 7.2 are the minutes from the Thunder Bay, the Red Rock Public Library Board meeting on June 18th. Do any members of council have remarks? Seeing none, is there a mover and seconder for motion to receive the minutes? Councilor No. Councilor Muir. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, next up, report from the Community Development Officer. Welcome, Ashley.
Good evening.
So is there anything specific we'd want to ask her, or would you like her just to highlight a few things and then we can go from there? Just to highlight, okay.
So there is a direction decision at the end, so I'm going to skip over that first item and we can talk about that later on. So our community interpretation plan is almost nearing completion. So once that final report is completed, we'll be receiving our final funding allocation from Parks Canada and MCA. That was a 100% funded project through Destination Northern Ontario and the National Marine Conservation Area. So this included our logo design, interpretation, all of our branding imaging to be used on signs on our website, social media pages, supporting documentation, anything from business cards to lanyard name tags. They are currently wrapping up our signage templates, design of potential banners. So when we find a suitable supplier, funding, dollar amounts, will at least have a design to go forward with it. If we decide to do it on our own, modify those for other promotional items for our community organizations and businesses. Our recreation center project is moving ahead. We are almost near completion. We're waiting on one more part for the bowling alley, and training on the automatic scoring system is anticipated to happen at the end of this month. So far, we're on track to have bowling starting the week after Thanksgiving. So that's what we're looking at. The lighting on the outside of the building is almost completed. There'll be 2 light standards going in the parking lot to improve the overall lighting and safety around the Baker Road side of the recreation center. There's a couple little aesthetic pieces with the siding as well as the actuator. So we're looking at a keypad system, a new keypad potential card system for the Baker Road entrance, because it's an issue of old technology trying to talk to new technology, and sometimes they don't see eye to eye. Paiute Mountain Run, I was not here for the August 12th meeting, which was directly after the Paiute Mountain Run. So just some highlights from that. We had 2 participants from Nova Scotia. They were visiting family, which was kind of neat. So we had some out of province participants. And we gave out about $4,500 worth of prizes and had over $1,000 in financial sponsorships to help us cover the costs of organizing the event. There was a post-event survey that went out. 29 of the 47 participants responded, 49 participants responded, which is actually a pretty good response rate. They were very happy with how the event went. Everybody loves the Legion ladies luncheon afterwards. Prizes, volunteers, they were very impressed with the community volunteers. And we had a lot of interest of returning participants. So they're already planning and looking forward to next year's event, marked in their calendars. So the plan is to keep it going on the second Saturday of August. So item number 5, the cruise ship was here on September 11th. We had approximately 46 passengers come off of the ship. So it's a mix of actually 23 of them were from the US. There's German people from Germany, Switzerland, Belgium, a couple from New Zealand, a couple Canadians, and a few from France. So it's not specifically just French individuals. On this trip, we're looking at over 70 visitors, and it looks like most of them so far are French speaking, or at least that's kind of the feedback we're getting from Terrace Bay, who's had received them already. They will be here they're planning to arrive about 2:30, 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. We'll be leaving about 8:30. The thing with expedition cruises is when the passengers are ready to go, the ship leaves. So even if we have options and activities for them to do in the evening from say 6 to 8 o'clock, they head over to the Zodiac to go back on the ship. And when all of the passengers are back on the ship leaves. So we do have some activities planned for tomorrow afternoon and evening. The vendors, we have about 17 vendors that will be set up just on the other side of the splash pad. They'll be here from 3 to 6. We'll have live music on the restaurant deck from 6 to 8. There is a barbecue happening for the passengers, but we do encourage members of the public to come down and just socialize and interact with the cruise ship passengers. They like that kind of community connection piece. So the public is invited to come and support the local artisans as well, and the vendors. I confirmed with Carter that the restaurant will be open tomorrow evening. So if community members want to come in, have a bite to eat, and then come down and visit the cruise ship members, they are more than welcome to do so. Interpretive Center will be open. Regular entrance fees will apply to the exhibit. The Historical Society will have a display in here. The kiosk will be closed, however, as of 1:30, 2 o'clock, as when there is an active tender going on, when the Zodiac is launched at or kind of moored at the service dock. We have to have security present, and it's more of a staffing issue because Bev will be here in the Interpretive Center. We don't have staff trained on the fuel system and the kiosk, whatnot. So the kiosk will be closed. The boat launch is still available for use, but the kiosk and fueling systems will be not available for use tomorrow afternoon and evening. The Memorial Banner Program, we are moving ahead with that. September 20th is when I'd like to have everything in. As I receive the forms, they're sent off to the Memorial Banner Program for development. And then as soon as we have all of those proofs, we will get them produced. Ideally, we like to have them up the week after Thanksgiving again and come down the week after Remembrance Day. So that is $250 per banner, which includes partial cost of the installation and a donation towards the Red Rock Legion. So this is a one-time cost for anybody who's interested in it. Average lifespan is about 5 to 8 years. So if they have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me. Bridge repair. So we're moving ahead with that. There is some excavation work going to be taking place in October, which will not impact the actual operations of the bridge itself, of like the closure of the bridge. We don't need to close it for the excavation work. It's basically to ensure that the bank doesn't slide even more and take the pilings with it. And then the additional work itself to the next vent will happen in November. It's actually easier to do this work when you can work in ice and not water. So they're looking at November, early winter, anticipating a 1-week closure. That also works in our favor for the escape road. So when the escape road is frozen and not soft in like it can be in early fall, it's a lot safer for users to use. Rest of the stuff we're kind of moving along with it. The Frost Street paving has been completed in front of the high school, at least the township's portion of it. So that was a great partnership with the school board. Similarly, these sections of sidewalk in front of St. Hilary Catholic School, that was completed as well while RML was on site working on that. So that was another great partnership opportunity to take advantage while the contractors were already doing work on the area. Water pollution control plant on August 27th. We had representation from our Lise Bourgeois, MPP Thunder Bay Superior North, Kevin Holland, MPP Thunder Bay Atikokan, who's also the Associate Minister of Forestry and Forest Products. Representation from Aqua, Agus, and we had elders and knowledge keepers, Marilyn Nedamajizik and Judy Wawier, who provided teachings and drumming as part of the opening ceremony. So that was a pretty exciting event for us that we could wrap up the water pollution control plant with our grand opening. Summer students have all been reported on. So we were fortunate to get 6 students. It's down from previous years, but we're lucky we got 6. A lot of other communities said that they definitely did not get what they were anticipating. So between the National Marine Conservation Area, the province and the federal government, we were funded for 6 summer students. The Green Municipal Fund. So this is a community building retrofit program, which we just received approval. This is a council meeting approval only. So I'm in the process of reviewing and executing our agreement. It is 80% funded. It includes energy audits and building condition assessments, so a full ASHRAM level 3 building assessment of our municipal facilities, including energy modeling and recommendations for upgrades with funding sources. So this means if we need to upgrade any of our heating or cooling infrastructure, our windows, siding, anything like that with our facilities, this gives us the document to do so, to make sure that it does meet funding requirements and allocations through funds like the CCBF or the gas tax fund, our provincial allotment with OSIF, et cetera, and any future federal funding that comes out specifically related to greenhouse gas reduction. So this gives the community that pathway on how we can improve our energy efficiency of our facilities and help decrease some of our operating expenses. So this was 80% funded, including contingency. The municipal portion is about $27,000. And that was approved by council at a bylaw when we submitted this application. So it's up to that $27,000. The rest of it is all kind of regular things that I have going on in the background when I'm not dealing with the last 13 items. So one that we're looking at direction moving forward is our tree assessment, our tree canopy. So I've provided you with the kind of preliminary recommendations. So the company that was hired, Rudder Urban Forestry, is working on their written report right now, but they provided us with some of their preliminary findings on identifying the specific trees that have limbs that are of concern. They don't have to be dealt with immediately, but they're at least to put on the township's radar that they are overhanging streets, sidewalks, driveways. They have dead limbs that should be addressed, or that we can at least we're aware of them. And it's up to the township to decide which ones we would like to address when. Given winter conditions can be very unpredictable. And you can't say this dead limb is going to fall off in 1 month, 2 months, 3 years, 5 years. So it's more, they can't tell us when the limb is going to fall off, but it's just to be put on our radar. They've given us an approximate cost for that work to take place, as well as the trunk injection for emerald ash borers. And the price for each for that as well, just to kind of keep into consideration for budgeting purposes and future planning. So that's something to keep in mind if there are specific ones that we can move that are, I guess, of obvious concern over sidewalks and roadways. We can pick out specific items and have those obtain quotes for just those specific trees. Or we can move ahead with the entire allotment. Those are a couple options just to kind of keep in mind. And then their initial quote to the township for all services that went out in the initial request for quotation, they anticipated would be $14,000 to do an entire tree inventory for the community. After their initial report, they realized that they definitely overestimated how big the town was, how much we actually had in terms of a tree canopy. So they revised that cost and provided that to you here at $4,550 to do that tree inventory versus the over $14,000 they had initially anticipated. So just for information pieces, when we first put out the request for quote for our tree assessment, the previous quote we had approved was just over $10,000, including HST. So in this event, just to kind of look at it, if we added this $4,500, we'd be sitting at maybe $14,000 to do what we had previously approved in the previous quote. So just kind of looking at that. So if there's any questions about our tree assessment, it's more of just kind of further direction. If you just want to sit on this information and discuss it further, we don't have to move ahead with anything right now. Once we get the full report from the consultant from Rutter Urban Forestry, that will give us a bit more information. But this was, if we do want to get any limbs dealt with before winter comes, we're looking at end of October. Just to get into anybody's season to get any of the work done, just to kind of keep in the back of your minds. So if there's any question on any of my council items, I would be happy to respond to them.
Okay, just to clarify your last few comments.
Yes,
So they quoted us 14,000.
initially,
We approve that.
no. So
Okay.
what we did was, so we asked for items A, B, and C from all companies putting in a quote. So the company that we had initially approved to do those items was about $10,000. It was 9 something plus tax, which was just over $10,000. When Rutter submitted that quote, their total quote was over that amount. So we went with the other company. That company was no longer able to do the work. So with Rutter, because they're all items A, B, and C were over our initial budget, we got them to pare down the cost to only do items A and B to fit within that $10,000 budget, roughly. If that makes sense. So so they've completed items A and B, and item C, that inventory was still kind of on their radar, and they realized when we gave you our initial quote, we grossly overestimated how much it would actually cost to do it. They came back with a revised quote in the event that, hey, if you still want to do this tree inventory, here's how much it would actually cost you versus what they had initially put in that quote. So that's what they're bringing forward. Is if you want to go ahead with this, here's how much it will cost to go with the original parameters of what we had put into our request for quotes at the beginning of this whole project. Clear as mud? Okay. Any other questions?
So we do have some trees that need to be addressed. So I do believe we have to move forward on those. I don't know how we go about, like, is that going to be up to us, or am I supposed to read through this?
So this was just kind of the ones that they have identified. I guess it's more of a budgetary item because this is completely out of the township's pocket. So if it's an event that, okay, we only want to spend $5,000, we only want to spend $10,000, how much do we want to spend on delimbing? Because some of the trees that they've identified, they're not just removing the loose ones, it's also preventative. So we can basically go back to Rudder and say, can you redo this quote? But we only want the dead limbs removed. We don't want any of the other ones, any of the ones hanging over sidewalks or streets or driveways, et cetera. So we can get them to revise that quote with specific parameters. Or if there's any that our council is specifically aware of that are of concern, that it's okay, this is actually hanging over a high traffic area, let's get that one down. Then we can include that and get a revised quote, including those specific ones.
Councillor Muir?
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of looking for a more specific, kind of, list of specific ones that are recommendations to cut down to kind of approve. So
Mhm.
instead of kind of going through the list tonight offhand, I couldn't tell you what needs to go down.
Yeah.
So I, myself, if there's a list that, or can even just be brought back, I'm okay for getting some stuff done now, based on whatever recommendations brought forward.
Yeah, and I think remembering that we budgeted $10,000.
Yeah.
Right, and remembering also that administration has taken and through my office and direction through to Public Works, we've obviously taken the direction and provided the direction that if there's a tree that's causing either infrastructure and or safety concerns, that we're handling those trees too,
Mhm.
right? So really and truly at this point, I mean, I think you're right. We put a, more of that detailed list together and we kind of manage it internally through operations, because when you're looking, I mean, we're getting late in the year, right? And we are addressing, and you'll notice in the last little bit, we've addressed some trees. I mean, there's two major issues with our trees. Really, infrastructure being one that we see where the roots, if straight through the pipes, we end up with major issues. We're addressing those as we see and as they come now. And the next one is safety. There's a lot of the big limbs that will hang over, say, a driveway, a car, where children play, et cetera. So I think we're addressing those. I wanted council to be assured of that we're looking at that operationally, that we are handling that, but we can come back with a more detailed list and also state that, again, it's the $10,000 we budgeted, so we'd have to go back for more
Yeah.
dollars.
So the $10,000 was to do the initial assessment, identifying what these priority trees were, how much it's going to cost us to actually address those, and then make recommendations moving forward of what we can do with our tree canopy, how to take a proactive approach, especially looking at a lot of these trees that are coming down. It's part of our beautification efforts. It's part of kind of Red Rock's image, what we can do to plant appropriate trees for our area that's not going to have a massive impact on our infrastructure. It's a little bit of conflicting messages because you get emails from Hydro saying plant deciduous trees because they're offering shade to your houses and lowering your energy costs. And yet we have massive infrastructure issues when you have 70-year-old Manitoba maples that are rooting into your water and sewers infrastructure. So this report and this project with a budget of about $10,000 does provide us with some options moving forward and how to address what we have now. So that's just kind of an update on what we have, with the consideration that to address these issues, you're looking at a $12,500 item to address what they've noticed so far.
Anyone want to comment on the trees? I'm satisfied that Public Works and the office is going to be addressing any of the concerns we have right now. I'm glad we have this report, and then we'll just continue to monitor and either budget for next year moving forward with that.
Yep.
Any questions on her report? I do have one. Has anyone reached out to you on the memorial banner? They want to do one but can't afford it. Have you had any of those discussions?
I have not had any of those discussions.
Okay.
There is also an opportunity for individuals who do not want to purchase a banner, but still want to honor a family member. The Memorial Banner Program has what they're calling kind of like a lawn sign initiative. So you see things like Rotary members or kind of, you see sometimes Legion ones, just essentially yard signs. They're almost like campaign signs. So they're reaching out directly to the Memorial Banner Program. They can help produce a lower cost item to help or to recognize a family member. So you can also reach out to me and I can pass along that information.
And also about the students, I know we didn't have anyone from post-secondary education, right? So no college or university students. So that's why our students had started in July. Because a lot of times we'll have some that start
Mhm.
right end of May, beginning of June.
So we had two students. So Ella Langevin was working in the CDO office in the library. So she's going into second year, or they are going into second year university. And then Grace Marsiski actually started the end of June. So,
But I think if you're speaking to
Yeah.
our public works and maintenance, we had a complete turnaround in
Yeah.
summer students this year. We ended up with a very energetic young crew, right? So it happens with that transfer or that transition. I mean, I think we went 3 years in public works with the same crew, like the same students. They grew up or they grew through the program from grade 11, 12 and on. This year, we went back to, we had to. I mean, we went back to, some of our students were as young as grade 9 and 10. So, but they did a good job.
No other comments on her report? Great job. I know it's late about the higher run, but
thank you.
that was
Oh.
that was fun.
And I did attend the Top of Superior Chamber of Commerce Awards on Thursday. So, presented the awards on behalf of the Township of Red Rock for the ones that were sponsored, and then also accepted the Milestone Award on behalf of the Paiute Mountain Run. So any of those awards are currently down in my office. Once the Recreation Center project is completed, we could look at putting them down in one of the display cases. It's primarily focused on sporting activities right now. Another option is possibly down in the hallway in the municipal building. There's a couple options that we can look at on where we can put plaques or awards that the community has received over the years.
Maybe the library, because it's visited quite often.
With regards to the Paiute Mountain Award, does the family get notified of that?
No, so the Paiute Mountain, it was just for the Paiute Mountain Run. The run itself has been going on for 40 years, so they were recognizing the activity. Yeah, when Mr. Paiute passed away several years ago, the Paiute Mountain Run that year was dedicated to his memory.
Okay, and I guess you'll be around for the cruise ship tomorrow, since you speak very good French. So that's great. I'll do my English welcome and you can follow up. Yeah, so it was great seeing them last week. And I hope there's going to be a few more people because all the vendors that are showing up. Great job in getting that many people down here. Okay, is there a mover and seconder for motion to receive the report? Councilor Muir, Councilor Brand, all in favor? Motion's carried. Hey, oh, hey, sorry. 8.2, report from the fire chief. Do any members of council have any questions on his report? Councilor Brand?
Or just a quick question. I'm not sure if Mr. Figurini can answer. Do we, what would the total number of firefighters?
I believe that number is, and I may not be exact, but it floats, I think, between 23 to 25, 22 to 25 in there. We have a very active volunteer fire department, and yeah, I mean, I can get that exact number, but I think it's right around that 25.
I think 26 is max, right? So. if we-
Yeah,
if
so,
we're
and
leaving
I
it at
believe,
one or two are common.
with a resignation here, due to retirement, which, we wish Rocky, Mercy all the best going. I believe we would be back at that 25 number, but we're in around 25, 26. I think our cap is 26, yes.
Okay, so as Mark mentioned, Rocky Mercier and his wife have moved to Southern Ontario in their retirement, so he has resigned from the fire department with regrets. So In saying that, is there a mover and seconder for motion to accept the resignation of Rocky Mercy from the Red Rock Volunteer Fire Department with regret and to receive the fire chief's report? Councillor Muir, Councillor No. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, 8.3, report on administrative activities. Mr. Figlamini, you're up.
Okay, I can give a brief summary and field any questions. I think if we look at, I guess if we look at going back to AMO, that conference was in Ottawa. I attended it August 18th to the 21st, and I can field any questions if there's any related. I think one highlight based on the summary of activity is again the emergency management control group meeting. We are going to be extending that Thursday this week into where our control group will attend a region or a safety tabletop exercise where we'll be able to meet our community compliance. So we've got all the work done, the bulk of the work done based on community compliance again for 2024, and we'll gather in Nippigan this Thursday to meet the final piece of that compliance. I think if we field right through to direction, discussion and updates. So a request from Rock Tech Lithium, they were actually supposed to be in Red Rock initially for a save the date of, I believe it was this week, the 18th. Their request to us is October 30th. I had advised them I would speak to council and provide a save the date for that. So again, that's a community open information session, October 30th. So if there's no real objection to that, I can reply to them that we'll save that date. We can do that as early as tomorrow. Is everyone okay with that date? I mean, it's more of a community event, but
Yeah, like we've asked them to, right, because we can't field those questions. We don't have all the answers to what the process of the
correct.
project. And
It's
so-
outside of the council structure as well. So we're not in a council meeting. It's just, it's obviously them coming in and addressing the community with some of those concerns. For sure. We're still working on the council vacancy policy, as well as the lease, the township lease policy as directed from council. We'll bring those back to you. It was a bit of a time crunch this last little week because somebody did go away on holidays for a bit, and so we'll have that, I hope, back to you by next meeting with council's direction. Speed bumps, again, we brought this back. There was a discussion last meeting. There was talk of the decision to not put the bumps back. That is what is the recommendation. But just looking for council direction. So we brought the speed bumps through a resolution of this report. So we necessarily can do the same by bringing them out and making that decision. So simply a direction from council that we're not going to be installing the speed bumps again is all we need for that. And that's what we will do if that's the direction of council.
Yes, I don't think there's going to be any complaints on that one.
Okay, is anyone in objection to that? Okay, so that we will do that. I'll go down to I guess ice installation. So we bring this to council based on a time frame. The recommendation from administration at this point is that we start the process that first week of November, probably that last few days of October, first week of November, projected to have an ice season 5 to 10 days after that process. So probably in that first to second week of November, we'd be ready to go. So we've took the initial steps of taking the process of talking to the installers, painters, etc. So you know, if council's good with that time frame, that's the direction we'll go with. Okay. Another one that I just wanted to highlight was, and I had a bit of a discussion with it on heritage designations. There was a bit of discussion on that. I'm looking a little further into that, but what I can see based on heritage designations is it's really a process that isn't started by council. So it's started from, for example, the owner of a building, et cetera, if they're looking for heritage designation. One of three ways. You can have a municipal designation, you could have a provincial and or a federal designation. I believe obviously the municipal piece would have to be accepted at this table by council, because there could be, and again, I'm looking a little further into it, but there a lot of times you will see tax exemptions for those type of buildings, et cetera. So it's a decision of council then, and I can certainly get more information on that as we move along, but I just wanted to highlight that. I know Councillor Muir, maybe the next couple of items, I know you had briefly said maybe speaking on a meeting schedule as well as Frank might do that waterfront. So unless there's any questions more of me, maybe if that's, we'll give the floor to Councillor Muir and then I can field any questions after that.
Yeah, definitely. So the Phragmites was brought up at the open house by a local resident. I was just seeing if there would be an appetite to reach out, find out exactly where these are, because I know from the discussions, from the stuff that's been handed out, they're basically saying the whole area, it's an invasive species. You're gonna have to take care of it. The municipalities are the ones that have to take care of it. That being said, if it ends up in our old beach area there, it might be an opportunity for us to remove all of that roughage that's down there, and we have a sandy beach. So that being said, I was wondering if council would possibly want to have direction to either, I don't mind reaching out to the individual, finding out where it is, or want to get direction on looking into it to see if they're there.
Yeah, the only discussion I've ever had on it, for sure, we can look at that first of all, but I was reached out to a while back from the NMCA, so the National Marine Conservation Area, where there was detection of Phragmites on the shore fronting what would be, I guess, the BMI property. So, but we didn't really spend a lot of time looking into that as a township, because it really wasn't. It wasn't in our area. But if it is, and again, I don't have that information, but can certainly look farther into that and what we could do if it was invading and how we clean it up. But we haven't spent a lot of time on that other than the initial discussion I had with Parks Canada or the NMCA.
So the other one too, I have a conflict, work conflict for the next 3 meetings. There'll be 2. We have board meetings on Monday nights. Tonight's one where I deferred. I had a presentation tonight. I didn't finish it, so I didn't show up. That's a joke. My boss is watching. I did finish it. But October 21, it turns out that the first and third Mondays kind of got this year. October 21, November 18th, and December 2nd are all conflicts for council and those regular board meetings for myself and Councillor No. Definitely Monday night, possibility of moving to another day if everybody's able to accommodate that. Earlier meeting if that's accommodated. Later meeting if that's accommodated, and they'd start meeting at 8.
Councillor Brand?
So you're just asking for those 3 specific dates?
Yeah.
Okay. Could we bump them each to the Tuesday?
We can do whatever we would like to do. We can. We can change a meeting, even though, I mean, there would be 3 of us. It doesn't matter, even though we do have quorum, we can change it in our bylaws. We do have the option of changing that. I don't mind changing that. If it's going to help, right? 3 meetings. I have no issue with it. I don't know. Councillor Brand, do you have an issue?
Don't have an issue, and I think, I mean, even though you said there'd be 3 of us, I think it's nicer to be able to have a full complement of councillors here. So I'm fine with changing it to the Tuesday.
And does that work for administration as well?
Certainly we can look at that for sure. I mean, I don't, I mean, I'll attend whatever the schedule, whatever the schedule is that, but certainly I think we can look at that and report back to you. I mean, we can maybe have an offline discussion about that and what the exactly those 3 dates are and look at those options. I know, we can have that discussion further and I know the mayor at times will have a conflicting work schedule around that. So, but certainly I don't see where it's a problem. We can have that discussion and then make those decisions. And when would it start for those meetings? Would it be as early as the next meeting?
October 21, November 18th, and December
Okay,
2nd.
so we have a lot of time to have that discussion. I don't think that will be a problem.
Yeah, and like, I can accommodate our schedule if it's earlier in the day, later, like, I mean, go to this first half of that meeting I mean, if the days don't work out for the mayor, because you have a schedule too. However works for everybody, as long as, you know, I just don't want to miss 3 meetings. That's not, it's tough to do that.
So maybe just send those dates, so we have it in writing, we can all confirm, and then maybe it's just best if it works with administration, we just go to the next day. We'll just do it on the Tuesday instead of earlier or later.
Yeah, for sure. We can
Okay.
report that.
I appreciate that, everybody. Thanks for the consideration on that.
And that's all I had on my report, unless there was any direct questions based on that.
I just like to say I always look to have the ice in earlier, but I will go with your recommendation. Okay, is there a mover and seconder for motion to receive the report? Councillor Brand. Councillor No. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, 8.4, report on the sale of the sale of 419 Highway 628. Do members of council have any questions on this? So this was the one that we asked him to go back and to negotiate and make him out with a better deal. Okay, is there a mover and seconder for motion to approve the sale of 419 Highway 628 in the amount of $23,035? Councilor Muir, Councilor No. All in favor? Motion's carried. 8.5, a report on the declaration of surplus property for the fire department, 1993 Ford Rescue Van. Do any members of the council have any questions? Besides good riddance. Councilor Brand?
Just wondering what kind of money we would get back for that. You know what it's worth?
So we have put we have put value to that, but we don't know if we want to put that value out in an open session, but when we're listing it, but we can have that discussion offline for sure. Again, it's a 1993. Most of the issues pertaining to it are the fact that it's hard to repair at this point. It's hard to find parts. But yeah, there is some value to it as well. And we'll more than likely take the step of listing it with a minimum bid on that, and we'll go from there. So the tender process is for the next truck, though. So once we list this as surplus, we council in the budget process had approved the purchase of that highway truck. So we've got the tender process ready to go for that. So what we do is we surplus this one, we sell it, and then we start the process of tendering the purchase for the new one.
Okay, is there a mover and seconder for motion to declare the following township property as surplus and post it online for bidding? Red Rock Volunteer Fire Department 1993 Ford Rescue Van. Councilor Muir, Councilor Brand, all in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, 8.6 is a report on the declaration of surplus property and unsolicited offer to purchase land. Do members of council have any questions of Mr. Pickering? Okay, is there a mover and seconder for motion to declare the following property surplus, township property as surplus? Part 267 of RF 55 R10890. Councilor Smith. All in favor? Against? Abstain? Motion's carried. Is there two of them? Okay. Is there a mover and seconder for motion to accept the unsolicited offer for the properties known as Part 267 of RF 55 R10890 to Duperio Developments in the amount of $42,205.23? Councilor Muir. Councilor Smith. All in favor? Abstain? Motion's carried. Okay, 9.1 is a bylaw to formulate an emergency management plan. You have that big document on the back. Any questions on this? Councilor Brand?
So with the current, and I don't know if we can talk about this, but with that current EMS issue that's going on where the ambulances aren't always available, will that affect this in any way?
Like this document, this bylaw?
Well, if we needed, if something happened, and this EMS thing is still in place, how do we, is there a way to get emergency vehicle here for people?
So this document is basically an annual review of our emergency management plan. And some changes that you'd see here. We go through it, as we said, we met as a control group. We go through our HIRA, which is our our conditions assessments and how we assess emergency management in our community. So this document is passed by bylaw. To answer your question, I mean, I believe you're referring to the lack of ambulance service in our area. It does, of course, it affects everything, but I can't, I mean, we couldn't as per se say we're in an emergency situation and demand an ambulance. I guess we could, but whether we got it, I don't know. So,
Yeah, so I think like with this document, you have all the phone numbers, you have all the contact people, right? So if there's any change in the EMS services that we were provided, that would be an update into this plan. But there would always be some kind of service. It's just, it would be coming from, maybe you have a longer wait for that service to get there, but all of it's basically having all the contact information, all of those, what if this situation happens, who are you referring to? Who, you know what I mean? It's that kind of.
yeah, so it would change it.
algorithms.
It would change it for sure. Like it's, but that might mean that we get that service from Nipigon at that day. That's a whole, another discussion that I think, we have to have at some point, but it certainly could control the document, but it's, I want to say it's out of our hands, but ultimately it's, unfortunately, in many terrible ways, it's out of our hands. But this document is our annual test, like I said, our annual exercise. Like I said, we'll be attending Thursday for the final piece of that.
Okay, any other questions? Is there a mover and seconder for motion to pass the bylaw? Counselor No. Counselor Muir, all in favor? Motion's carried. So we'll make sure the AC is off next time. Okay, unfinished business. Anyone wants to speak to that?
No, I think I mean, I think it adds to, as Councillor Brand was speaking to on EMS, that I think, I mean, this piece is consolidation, but obviously, it's gone beyond, consolidation with staff shortages now. So I think we have to stay on top of that as a group, and we are. A lot of the CAOs are having those conversations. From a political level, it's definitely, an issue as well. And that's really the only update I have on that. We'll hopefully be able to bring you some more information back on both those pieces as we hear it. But unfortunately, it's not a good situation for our Northern Ontario communities at this point.
Yep, go ahead.
So Beer Fest is we're just looking to see if we can get council's approval to move it to the waterfront. Opposed to having it on the main street, just logistically, it makes more sense to have it down here. We've got bands booked. We've got the Hoolies, pretty ugly. Beverage Club. We've got some comedians booked as well, but we're definitely looking to do it down here. So we use the pavilion. There's an abundance of power, fishing game, this building, and plus we've got a line on some porta potties. So it's fantastic. So we're definitely we're getting there now. But the bands are booked, and then donation letters are going out next week. So yeah, it's Beer Fest. If we can move it down to the waterfront here, use the pavilion for the bands. I think it's going to be one day event only, July 25th, July 12th, 2025. Yeah. Chris Holland is booked as well too. So there's an hour of comedy, roughly 3 and 4.5 hours of music right now booked. We're still looking for a couple more bands. But we figured the waterfront is going to be able to, it'll be better for the kids and families as well too, with the splash pad and everything here too. So we thought we definitely move it here. Yeah, and inflatables. There's we got a line on lots of good stuff. So
Yeah, I think from an administrative point of view, we can certainly do our best to make that happen if that's the direction of council. July 12th, you said, of 20. Yeah, okay.
Yep, I don't have a problem right now, but I mean, logistically, however it works with volunteers and stuff and whatever is needed from the township, we'll have to discuss that. Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, so moving forward, we're okay with that, unfinished business. We have to go back into closed session as we didn't finish before, so the time being 8:28. We will be going into closed session under the authorities as printed in the beginning of the agenda. Thank you. Need a mover and seconder to go into closed session. Councillor Brand, Councillor Muir. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, right, rising from closed session, council discussed employee negotiations, matters relating to an identifiable individual and legal matters in closed session. Okay, next is the bylaw to confirm proceedings of council. We have a mover and seconder to pass the bylaw. Councillor Smith. Councillor No. Oops, two T's. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, next council meeting will be on October 8th. So that is the Tuesday. So that's after Thanksgiving. Yep, so time being 9:36. There is no further business to attend to. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.